Today's fairy tale is one of the most brutal I have ever told you. I mean, husbands torturing wives, princesses murdering suitors, twists in the plot that go everywhere. Possible racism, at least pretty problematic pictures. It's called What the Rose Did to the Cypress, purportedly a Persian tale, but recorded by a Scottish author, Andrew Lang, in his Brown Fairy book. A king has 3 sons. One day the oldest goes hunting, chases a deer until he gets lost, his horse died, and he's kind of in this deserted place where a fakir is. And the fakir tells him he used to be a king, but he lives alone and mourns forever because all 7 of his sons died trying to win this princess who will only marry a man who can answer a riddle, and if they can't, they get beheaded. Instead of thinking, well, I better stay away from that princess, he's like, I'm gonna try. Goes to this kingdom, the king's like, dude, please don't risk your life doing this. And he's like, no, I'm gonna do it. The question is, what did the rose do to the cypress? He can't answer it, so they cut off his head and they hang it from the battlements. As usual, the second son decides to go and try too. He dies, but the third son, when he rides into the city and sees his brother's heads up on the battlements, decides he's gonna try a different approach. He discovers he can secretly get to the princess's private gardens by going through a stream. The princess is named Mirafruz, and that's important because there's gonna be more than one princess, and she sends one of her servant girls, Dilaram, to go get water from the stream. Dilaram sees his reflection in the water, discovers him, brings him to the princess. Well, he keeps himself from getting killed by pretending to be crazy, and so the princess just kind of keeps him around because he's like a fun little pet. Plus he's hot, which Mirafruz likes. So does Dilaram, and so one time when they're alone, he admits what he's really there for. She says, hey, I'm in love with you, and he says, if you help me win the princess and beat this riddle, I will make you one of my wives and make you one of my favorites forever. She's down with that, so she tells him the answer to the riddle can only be found in Africa from this one king. Princess Mirafruz only knows it because she has been secretly keeping an African man hidden under her throne. And he's the one who came and told her the story. So our dude heads off to Africa, but on the way he comes to this enchanted realm where a sorceress turns him into a deer. She traps him in this enchanted garden. A beautiful maiden named Jamila finds him and she's like, oh, I can tell you're human. My sister must have transformed you into a deer. So she transforms him back into a prince. She tells him he needs to seek out the Simurgh, which is a bird in Persian mythology. He goes on his way, then rescues another princess with the help of this talking lion king that she'll be important later. He leaves her with the lion for now, and then he goes and defeats a dragon. Takes the dragon meat and feeds it to the children of the Simurgh, the little baby birds, and it's so grateful that it gives him a feather and says, I will carry you to this African king you seek, and it does. And the feather is magic and can summon the Simurgh back at any time. Bird takes him to the king's court, and when he gets there, he tells the king, please tell me the answer to the riddle, and he says, I'll only tell you that if you promise to let me kill you afterwards. And our guy's like, okay. So the king says, all right, here's what the rose did to the cypress, and he brings out this woman who is chained up. After a group of Africans brings her in, the king orders 100 stripes laid on her body, so whipped 100 times, that happens, and then she weeps, and she weeps rose petals and pearls. In front of her, the king brings out his dog, puts a fine meal in front of the dog, has the dog eat it up, and the sloppy scraps the dog leaves behind are given to the woman, and she eats them. Then the king tells our dude, all right, this woman you see here is the rose. Her name is Gull, which means rose. And I am Cinnabar, which means cypress. I treat her like this because of what she did to me. He goes into this long backstory of how he met her. He saved these 2 peris from a well. Now, a peri is a Persian mythological creature. They're sort of like jinn being supernatural, but they sometimes have wings. In this version, they don't. They're just magical creatures that look like humans in this version. Like I said, he saves 2 from a well and they've been blinded, and he unblinds them by getting a special magical cow's dung and rubbing it on their eyes. And as a reward, they tell him where this beautiful woman who is of their kind lives. So she's a peri too. There's a whole long thing where she hides him in his bedchamber for a while because she wants him too, but her dad doesn't want her to marry him. Eventually the dad says yes, they get married. One night he wakes up in bed and notices her feet and hands are really cold, and he makes inquiries and discovers she's been riding away on a horse in the middle of the night to a house that a bunch of Africans have built in the country. And they don't use the word African, that's the word I'm using. So the next night he follows her out there, sees her meet this giant African who beats her for being late. And here's part of what this king is mad about. As he beats her, she utters no complaint, but one time when he just playfully struck her with a rose stalk, she complained for 3 days, and he's like, She doesn't complain when this dude beats her. So after that, she sits beside the African on a throne, implying they're having a kind of affair. And then he gets seen, the king, and so the African tries to kill him, but his trusty dog, who got the fine meal earlier, comes out and saves him. The king kills that African and then kills 3 more, but another one gets away. And that's the one that's been hiding under the throne of Princess Mirafruz and has told her this whole story that is the answer to the riddle. The end of the story the king tells is that since that day, he has treated her like his dog and treated his dog like his queen. He says, all right, to our protagonist, time to die, but the protagonist uses the feather from the magic bird. The bird comes and carries him away. It takes him to Mirafruz's castle, where he now knows the answer to the riddle. Everyone gets assembled. He answers the riddle correctly, and as proof, he says, go look under her throne, and they drag out the African hiding under her throne. He confirms everything is true. The king's like, okay, you can marry my daughter, and he says, no, I'm gonna take her as my slave because she doesn't deserve to be my wife because she murdered my brothers and all these other people. And the king's so mad about the hidden African thing that he's like, all right, take her, do what you want. The prince does keep his promise and marries her maidservant, Dilaram. Then on the way back to his father's kingdom, he marries the princess that he saved with the help of the Lion King, whose name is also Gul, meaning rose, but not this one. And he marries Jamila, the one who transformed him out of deer form. He gets home with his 3 wives, has also brought the African that was hiding under the throne, and has him torn apart by 4 horses. The captive Princess Mirafruz, afraid he'll do the same thing to her, says, please forgive me, all those people really must have been fated to die. It wasn't my fault. So he does forgive her, he marries her, and lives happily ever after with his 4 wives. The end. As always, check out my book, Dust Spells, a reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and my podcast. All the links are in the bio.